Ride. I am your host, David Carrico, and we are now
live
on the Midnight Ride. And this evening, our broadcast is entitled Wizards of Old and the Great White Brotherhood. We're going to have an extremely compelling broadcast this evening with my co-host, John Pounders. How's everything going, John?
Everything is going good, man. I'm excited about this one. This is something we've been both researching independently for quite a while, and over the years, I've run into many different versions of this that we're going to be talking about, so I'm excited.
Yeah, and this is something that, by their own admission, Theosophy and Freemasonry are making a concerted effort to bring the world under the control of the Ascended Masters. And they are, by their own admission, disseminating Ascended Master doctrine throughout the church. And after we talk about some of these things, you're going to spot it. And in the future, you're going to be able to be discerning and recognize these Ascended Master doctrines. But before we get into the broadcast, we have a little business to take care of here of our sponsor, Joshua Watts Leather Company. And here is a Bible case that Joshua made, and other items that you can go to, JoshuaWattsLeather.com?
Yes, sir.
And you can have Joshua, there's things in stock, or he can make to order whatever you would desire in the way of really neat leather stuff. So, with that taken care of, let's get into our broadcast. And John has a slide presentation prepared tonight, and this is an exciting topic, and it's such a pertinent topic. It is really recognizing the deliberate plan of the enemy to bring the world under the control of fallen angels, and it's a full-blown assault. So, John, take us on the Midnight Ride, Wizards of Old and the Great White Brotherhood.
All right, and one thing I do want to mention is stay tuned, because at the end of the show, we will be announcing the winners of the contest that we had. We did a show a couple weeks ago, and the prizes are pretty awesome. There's first, second, and third place. And so we'll be announcing that later on, and just stay tuned. So basically, I want to preface what we're going to be talking about tonight, because I want people to understand why we're talking about it. Because, David talked a little bit about it, but this is something that is very, very, very prevalent in Christianity, in every sect of Christianity, I guess let's put it that way, every denomination. What we're talking about here is so subtle and so smooth and so crafty that it's very hard to tell the difference between somebody that believes in this and somebody that believes in Christianity or any form of Christianity, because they do believe in Jesus, they do believe in that, but they have a different version of the gospel and a different idea behind it. And this is important to learn, because as I did a lot of this research, I actually went online on my Facebook and I hashtagged different things, and I looked and I could see that a lot of my friends are actually involved in this. A lot of people that I know are actually involved in this stuff very subtly. And so anyways, we're going to start this out. So this show talks about the Wizards of Old and the Great White Brotherhood. So the Great White Brotherhood is a belief system akin to Theosophy, and it's actually Theosophists are one of the ones that helped develop it, and to the New Age teachings as well. And they all share a similar root. There's a westernized version of this whole thing as well, and they all kind of vary a little bit, not much, but the adepts and the mysteries and Theosophists will understand the references that we're going to make, and the differences they're so subtle that basically they're almost non-existent. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter, these subtle differences. The whole idea and the scheme of everything is exactly the same. And we'll talk about a little of the differences later on as we go through this. So, the members of this brotherhood, this so-called brotherhood, and this Great White Brotherhood they're called the Masters of Ancient Wisdom, and they're also known as the Ascended Masters. And if you guys remember, a few weeks ago we did the 7 root race teachings, which also come from this idea, and the Masters of Ancient Wisdom. And we'll get into a little bit more about the Ascended Masters and their teachings, but I want to discuss their history first, because I think it's important to know where this teaching comes from and where it kind of goes from here. So we have, let me see here. There we go. We got the next slide up there. It looks like not having it here. So for some reason it's not showing my next slides on here. So let me change something up here. Let me see if I can get this to do what's right. But in the meantime, David, if you want to talk a little bit about that, so let me see if I can get this kink worked out in our thing. I have, for some reason, usually when I switch it, it shows you guys, but it's not showing you. So go ahead, David.
Well, one of the tremendous and terribly sad things is that people are being duped into believing, as the Apostle Paul said, another Christ and another Spirit. And I'm going to read one paragraph here from a book entitled Masonry in the New Age, and it's written by a man by the name of Lynn Perkins. He's a Freemason and an Ascended Master teaching, as there are many, and most of your really adept teachings on the Ascended Masters have come from Freemasonry and Theosophy almost exclusively. And it really originated in Theosophy. The term was coined toward the latter part of the 19th century, in the late 1800s. But of course, this has been around. These are just fallen angels. They've been around for a long time. But this term, Ascended Masters, and the plan to bring the world under their domination, it became codified into a plan in the late 1800s. And in Theosophy, we saw Madame Blavatsky, and after her, Annie Besant and C.W. Leadbeater, and following them, Allison Foster Bailey and Manly P. Hall, Freemasonry's greatest philosopher. These are the main exponents of this Ascended Master doctrine. And it was originated in Theosophy, and they saw within the structure of Freemasonry the framework they needed to disseminate this throughout the earth. And we'll be bringing forth specific quotes throughout the evening on their deliberate plan to do just that. And on page 207 of this book, Masonry in the New Age, here's where so many people are being led astray and being led to damnation. It says, in times past and in our time, when the great Ascended Masters like Jesus of Nazareth wished to communicate with earth beings, they almost always selected a person who had been taught and had acquired the spiritual power to receive and record their messages. In a vast literature on the subject, these participants of such thoughts and messages of a master are called sensitives or channels. So there are people out there that are teaching and using the name Jesus, but it's not the Jesus that you and I know, not the Jesus of the Scriptures, not Yeshua, who was the virgin-born Son of the Father. And people are being led, instead of receiving revelation from the Holy Spirit, they are channeling, and they are being duped into submitting to these spirits of the Ascended Masters. And it's a new twist on being possessed by a devil. It's willingly turning yourself over to union. And it's the same result, but instead of something coming in that an individual doesn't want, they are willingly receiving in these Ascended Masters to receive revelation. And Jesus, their Ascended Master Jesus, is one of their most favorite Ascended Masters. And also Mary and many Catholic people are being duped into receiving revelations from the ascended master called Mary, who is not the Mary of the Bible. So it's very, very relevant and pertinent that people are aware of this and they can discern this. And there are people, now they'll say Jesus, but if you examine their doctrine, it's ascended master doctrine. That is coming is just nothing but fallen angel doctrine.
Exactly right, and I got this thing working now. Finally, I don't, there are always kinks or something. Before the show, we actually had our internet was doing the thing we did. It was doing the other week, and so, but this is our last week here in this office for the Midnight Ride. We'll be moving to a new location next week, and we're excited about that. So that'll be good. Hopefully, the internet will be better, and we won't have any of these issues. But so one thing that I wanted to do is kind of discuss the history, and David got into it a little bit. So the first person in the United States was a Russian occultist named Helena Blavatsky, and we profiled her on a lot of different shows. And I would suggest that if you don't know who she is, maybe go back to some of the older shows we did, maybe on the Seven Root Races or on different ones, because we've discussed her, and it seems like lately she's been all over the theosophy stuff that we've discussed. But she definitely plays a huge role in this, and she's the first person to actually claim to have heard from them in this area. And then after her, it followed several other people. So one of the first was Helena Roerich, and she died in 1955. But she was a Russian theosophist. She was a writer. She was a public figure. She created the Living Ethics, and basically what that is Agni Yoga. And she organized culture activities in the U.S., and she translated 2 volumes of Helena Blavatsky's books as well here. And she was an honorary president and founder of the Institute of Himalayan Studies in India, which a lot of Himalayan studies ideas, they all fall into theosophy perfectly because they believe in Shambhala, which is very similar to the Great White Brotherhood, the Great White Lodge in the sky. Not a much difference in the two, and they have the same exact ideas of these people. And she was also the honorary, or she became, she was born of an ancient prominent bloodline called Novgorod in Russia, and she also had a minor planet named after her too. So
well, that's impressive.
Yeah, if that doesn't tell you something, there's something there. This lady was really of one of the most prominent bloodlines. Her family, there's actually a city in Russia named after her family. So this lady is not just some joker lady. She is somebody that was very high prestige. And so anyways,
a real quick factoid there on the Roerich family. Nicholas Roerich was the personal counselor to Henry Wallace, who was the vice president to Franklin Delano Roosevelt at the. Oh, were you going to say that? I'm sorry.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
All right. I didn't want to walk on your presentation.
No, you can go walk all over it, man. I can always adapt.
But you see, the ascended masters. You see, we don't plan this out, folks. You see, we're just letting it roll here. But Nicholas Roerich was the personal counselor to Henry Wallace, vice president to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who instigated the Great Seal of the United States to go on the reverse side of the dollar bill. Now, if you haven't seen that lately, turn it over and look at the pyramid and the all-seeing eye. And the ascended masters absolutely directly influenced the construction of the backside of the American U.S. dollar. And this is exactly this bloodline Russian family of theosophists that John is talking about here. So you see, the extent and the influence of this is huge. And to see it, all you got to do is remember that every time you pull a dollar bill out.
Yeah, you can't separate theosophy and really how the world operates in this current day. You really can't do that. I know a lot of people think, oh, they're just whatever, but we have, like we talked about in the Seven Root Races, anthropologists, human anthropologists, they use the terms laid out by these theosophists to describe different races and different groups of people. So, I mean, it's very important to understand this, because the terms, we're going to be talking about a lot of these terms too, so you can recognize these terms. And I would strongly suggest taking notes and really checking this stuff out. And anytime you hear a term that you don't normally hear, I would suggest using one of the greatest tools that we have in humanity today for research, right? Back when I was in high school, we didn't have this tool. Back when David was young, we didn't have this tool. You couldn't just go and find anything, really. You know, you had to go into a library, look at a bunch of different things, and hope you find what you're looking for. Whereas today, you can type in keyword searches and find just about every bit of information you can find on a subject, thousands of volumes of books on a subject. And I would suggest people do that because there's a lot of naivety going on in Christianity where they trust everybody that says, hey, I'm Torah observer, hey, I believe in Jesus, hey, I believe in Yeshua. Automatically there's a trust there. I would submit to you that trust is earned. You don't trust people just because they say something, because guess what? Satan's angels, Satan's messengers transform themselves as messengers of light, right? And that means they're going to find them in the churches. You're going to find them in other places. Some of the most wicked people in the world have behaved very good on the outside, but have done some really wicked things behind closed doors. But this next guy we're going to talk about is not one of those guys, but this next guy we're going to talk about here is Aleister Crowley. He behaved very wickedly in the open, but he is also a very prominent teacher of this doctrine. He was an English occultist. For those of you who don't know anything about him, he was a ceremonial magician. He's a writer. He founded the religion of Thelema, and he claimed to be a prophet, and he was the guide of humanity into the Eon of Horus. That's what he claimed. And he is also a dark left-handed path magician of Freemasonry, and he called himself the Beast. He was educated at Cambridge, so he had a good education. And some biographers say that he was recruited into the British Intelligence Agency. He joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. In his honeymoon in Cairo, he claimed to have contact with the entity known as Ayahuasca, and this entity provided him with the Book of the Law. He did several other workings as well that we talked about. He was also joined the OTO, which David, as we've talked about before, the OTO, we have Jack Parsons, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, that was actually a member of the OTO and the leader of the OTO at one time. They did several workings where they called forth these beings through portals. At least that's what they said they did. This guy plays a major role in a lot of things, even though he was definitely described as one of the most evil men in the world.
Yeah, and Crowley, when he was under the influence of his ascended master, Ayahuasca, he channeled the Book of the Law. And as Crowley willingly gave himself over to this ascended master, he produced all of his works under the direct anointing and channeling directly from fallen angels. And Crowley is the example of the Theosophist choosing Freemasonry. And we've got and of course, Madame Blavatsky and Anne Besant, they were in what is called co-masonry. And co-masonry had its own specific ascended master, Saint Germain. And co-masonry was actual legitimate Freemasonry. It had a charter off the Lodge Adroit Humaine in Paris, France. And co-masonry was one of the ways, and Blavatsky, Besant, C.W. Leadbeater, and all of the people, Allison Foster Bailey, Manly P. Hall, they were all Freemasons, and they saw in the structure and the global reach of Freemasonry the framework they needed to spread this. And Crowley is a good example of this. And Crowley took it through the left-hand path, and there were others that took it to the right-hand path, and they just are taking it every way. But this is the common denominator. And like John said, one of the ways to recognize this, all of these groups use group speak, and they'll use words to deceive you. They'll talk the Christianese. They'll say Jesus. They'll say Mary. But also they use their buzzwords that are known within their group. And when you can identify these buzzwords, you can see through a lot of this. And this is how the people identify one another, is through these buzzwords, like John was talking about.
Yeah, and you mentioned Alice Bailey, and I'm going to profile her a little bit here because I think it's important we understand what she was about and what she accomplished as well. And you're right, these buzzwords are very important. People need to open their ears and open their eyes, be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove, because I'm telling you right now, we're falling under a great deception. There's people that have accepted these people into their fold, and we've had people on our show before that have not been people that we should have had on our show, that we had no idea because we were uneducated in certain things. Now when you say uneducated in certain things, me and David have both exclusively studied this stuff for a long time, but there's there's so much out there that it's hard to find this stuff out, and we've closed our eyes to it, but not anymore. This is a time where we have to be aware and vigilant because these wolves are all around us. And I'm telling you this because I didn't realize how many there were until I started doing this study. I mean, things were presenting themselves to me to see how many people were actually involved in this. I had no clue. And so anyways, back to Alice Bailey. Alice Bailey was born in England, and she moved to the U.S. at 27 years old. She died in 1949, so she's no longer here. But she wrote more than 24 books on theosophical subjects, and she was one of the first authors to actually use the term New Age. And she was a member of the Anglican Church, and she received a Christian education actually when she was younger. And at 22, she did evangelical work for the YMCA and the British Army, and she married Walter Evan, who became an Episcopalian priest. She founded Lucifer Publishing Company, which is the symbol you see here on this slide. And it was changed to Lucas Publishing Company. I guess that name was a little bit too off course at the time. And she also founded Lucas Trust, which was the educational institute that basically provides studying on her writings. And you can look all this stuff up online. This is common knowledge. You can definitely check it out, and I would definitely suggest checking it out because Alice Bailey was a very, and she still is a very, I guess, studied person in Freemasonry and with the people that run the world. And I would definitely suggest educating yourself on the stuff that she wrote, not necessarily reading it or whatever, but just realizing the terms. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit about it. This is the reason we're doing the show. You don't have to go out and read these books. We're going to show you exactly what it is. But if you wanted to check our references, please do, because everything that I'm talking about tonight, everything that I'm saying is verifiable. There's no way somebody can and there will be people in the comments say, oh, you guys don't know, you're just blowing hot air. This stuff, you can search it out, and I would suggest you doing that if you think that what we're saying is hot air, because this is exactly what they teach. This is not what I'm putting on their thing. This is what they believe, okay? And so this next guy, some of you guys might recognize or remember this guy. His name's Guy Ballard, and he was born in America, born in Kansas. He died in 1939, and he claimed to have this spiritual experience while he was in California. And David, you talked about Saint Germain, and he claimed to have actually met Saint Germain on the road while he was doing his thing, and that's how he kind of converted to this idea. And he wrote about this encounter in Unveiled Mysteries and The Magic Presence, and those two different books. And he used the pen name Godfrey Ray King. And he was also the founder of the I Am activity, which is an offshoot of Theosophy and really a major precursor to the New Age movement. And actually, guys, this is interesting, but I did some research on the I Am movement. There are actually people that hold signs that say, I am woman, or I am in the big capital I am, or I am this, or I am that. And this comes from the I Am movement, believe it or not. It's really interesting, very subtle. Most people that probably hold up these signs have no idea, but this is where it's coming from, because they believe you have to come into this I Am presence. And I'll talk about the different levels of initiates later on, but this I Am initiate is like the second level. I think the first level of initiation. Once you realize who you are, you realize your spiritual presence on this earth and all these different things. So it's pretty interesting. And another, if you don't mind, I'm going to go through a couple more of these real quick, get through these guys, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some of this other stuff here. So I'm going to go on to the next person that we have here is Claire Prophet. And I don't know if you, or Elizabeth Claire Prophet, I don't know if you've heard about her or not, but she died in 2009, so she was around recently, and she was a spiritual leader and an author. And in 1975, she founded the Church Universal and Triumphant, which expanded worldwide, and you can still find some of those churches today. They actually look like, like a Catholic church on the outside or a Christian church on the outside. And she founded the Summit University and Summit University Press, and you can research that. Go on Google, research that. Go on Facebook, see if you got anybody that likes that or is a part of it. And during the 80s and 90s, she appeared on Larry King Live, Donahue, Nightline, and she also worked for the Christian Science Monitor, owned by and founder of the Church of Christ, Mary Eddy. So the Mary Eddy was the Church of Christ founder, and she worked for that monitor. So they're all up in everything. I mean, this is not like they've been pushed out or pushed away from all this stuff. And another guy, some of you guys might recognize this guy because he's all over. You can find him on the internet. You can find his videos on YouTube talking about this person, Maitreya. Maitreya, I guess is the way you pronounce it. But anyways, let me go back to the slides here. This guy, he died recently. I think he died just a couple years ago. And he was from Scotland, and he was an esoterist author and editor of the Share International magazine, and that's what I got there on the side there by him on this picture. He believed that the second coming that was prophesied by a lot of religions, when it comes to like Buddhism, Islam, whatever, he believed that this person, and even in Christianity, Jesus, he believed that this person was actually Maitreya, and he's what the Maitreya is who the Buddhists actually refer to as the future Buddhist. So it's a Buddhist term that he uses. And according to Cream, other names that he had been given are Christ, Imam Mahdi, or Imam Mahdi, Krishna, and Messiah. So he was asked to make recordings of his message supposedly by his ascended master that actually was teaching him in 1959. And like I said, there's videos of him. You can see him doing lectures. You can see him being interviewed by Bill Maher on TV, all kinds of stuff. And in 1982, he placed in ads in newspapers all across the world, all right, saying that Christ was here, he's now here, and the second coming would actually be in June 21st of 1982. And he held a press conference, and he said that Maitreya was actually living in Asia near a community in London. He made several other predictions as well, but these were a couple of the ones he made. And he believed that Maitreya actually came on CNN several times, and he wouldn't tell anybody who it was, but he said that this person was this and that, and some people even like theorized that Raj Patel was this actually person when he was interviewed on TV. Interesting stuff, this guy. I mean, he have you seen any of his videos, David?
Yes, I have. As a matter of fact, Sister Donna had an encounter with him on Coast to Coast AM.
Really?
When he was on Coast to Coast AM, Sister Donna called in and had a very fascinating conversation with Benjamin Krim on air, and we put the transcript of that in our Luciferian Transmutation book. But, John said that you can check what we're saying, and this is Benjamin Krim's book right here. It's called The Reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom. And just a couple quick snippets just to emphasize the thing that John is saying here. On page 87, he talks about how this is going to be disseminated, and he says that this takeover of the Ascended Masters is going to come through Freemasonry and the Church. So do you think, well, we might have a problem if we have Freemasons in the Church? Well, maybe, huh? But he says, through the orders of Masonry, the initiatory path will be trodden, and initiation will be taken along the first ray line of power within the purified churches. And of course, a purified church is going to be a church that's going to buy in and not hold the line on this Ascended Master doctrine. And almost nobody out there is drawing the line on this stuff. And people will say, well, boy, you guys are bad guys, you're going to draw the line. Well, I tell you, you're going to either draw the line or you're going to buy the farm. And he goes on to say on this, on the next page, and this is really compelling to me. He says it will be seen to be possible to hold both approaches at one the same time, and they will be brought together in a new scientific religion based on the mysteries. Now, I thought that was very compelling. This new religion, it's going to be based on the old mystery religion and science. Now, isn't that just what we're seeing all over?
It definitely is, man, and you really can't separate the two anymore. I mean, it's the same exact thing. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I mean, we did a show, I think it was last week with Gary Wayne, where we talked about dark science, and we talked about their goal and how it actually works. Now, there's a difference between people saying, okay, let me put this chemical in this chemical and see what happens, science, versus coming up with magical theories out of thin air, basically like Tesla did, or like all these geniuses did, where they pulled information from this source, okay? And this is where all this source comes from. This all ties in together: the ether, the vril, the mahat, and the prana. All this stuff ties together, and I feel like, I was just talking to David before the show, and I'm like, dude, if I put my notes together for the past like 4 shows that me and you have done together, I was like, I got a book here. I need to find somebody that can edit and do some grammar, because my grammar is horrible, and they can put it together for me. So,
if we could just find someone that could actually speak and write English, we'd be in business,
Yeah.
And there's another little layer we can spread upon all these concepts. The vril, the prana, Blavatsky called this force the Fohat. Swinburne Clymer and many others, they call it the ether. And what we're talking about is the power that emanates from these ascended masters in the second heaven. And there are specific quotes here that we can share where they deliberately try to draw down this substance by whatever name they call it. You see, and this is what makes it difficult to really understand what they're saying, because they'll use different terms. Well, it's the Fohat, the prana, the vril, but it's all the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing. And there's another term called the zoosphere, the Zoosphere. And this was coined by the Jesuit theologian Teilhard de Chardin. And through this concept of the zoosphere, where they tap into the collective, there's the collective knowledge of mankind floating up there in the cosmos, and we can tap into it. And these, ancient people will talk to us in the whole sphere. But this zoosphere from the Jesuit theologian Teilhard de Chardin, this is just another layer of nastiness spread on top of the whole thing, and another way that this is seeping in through liberal seminaries and becoming acceptable at a seminary level.
It most certainly is. I mean, you've got the emergent church, you've got places like that are teaching this stuff plain and simple. I mean, most people don't realize, I didn't put together slides on it, but I was looking into the founders of the emergent church. One of the founders, this guy is a bloodline guy. I mean, this guy went to Dartmouth. He was in a prestigious family, and he went and studied all these different religions together, and kind of put together this syncretic idea, which is really interesting, and they're very subtle with how they do it, but you're exactly right on that. One guy I want to profile real quick too, because this guy is, he was probably one of the original guys that brought this out, and I probably should have had him first, or put him on there first, but, and I'm probably going to butcher his name a little bit here, but his name's Karl Eckarthausen, and he was actually in the Illuminati at one time, that was founded by Adam Weishaupt, and he basically, the idea of a secret organization of dead mystics who guide the development of humanity, he's the one that pioneered this idea. And like I said, he was in the Bavarian Illuminati, but he withdrew his membership after he discovered that the author only recognized enlightenment through human reason, or that not the author, but the order only recognized enlightenment through human reason, because the Illuminati was more about science, more about this and that, where he was more about taking on information from these dead guys. And so he was the author, and you guys can see his book here. It's called The Cloud Upon the Sanctuary. And it was basically Christian mysticism to its fullest. And it was given status, this book was, by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And his ideas were expanded by Charles Leadbeater. We've talked about Leadbeater many times. Leadbeater plays a huge role in this kind of stuff as well. I didn't profile him because we had profiled him on several other shows. And so the ritual magicians refer to the Great White Brotherhood, and they refer to it as the Great White Lodge, and we talked a little bit about that as well. And that kind of gives you the idea of Freemasonry, and they believe it's an initiatory system like Freemasonry. And in the Vedic text, like I said before, it's referred to as Shambhala, and in other texts as well. And so it's definitely interesting to really look at it in that light, how Freemasonry, the Great White Lodge, the Great White Brotherhood, these all tie in perfectly together. I think David talked a little bit about that before, about how they tie in. And basically, if you want to expand on that a little bit, David, feel free. I know that you've done a lot of extensive research on the Great White Lodge, and I know you talked a little bit about that before.
In Scripture, in Colossians 1:16, for by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. And if you study the entire context here of Colossians 1, and we're talking about thrones that are in opposition to God. And we know that the throne of the Father is above the firmament in the third heaven, where he is in the assembly of the congregation of the assembly. But when the angels fell, there are some of them that came to earth and inbred with human women. These are now chained in Tartarus. And there are other fallen angels that are not chained, that are operating in what is called thrones in the second heaven. And we've mentioned the Great White Brotherhood. And this is literally a real place in the second heaven that is a spiritual reality. And there are several other of these thrones that are very popular in this ascended master jargon. And in the whole UFO realm of the thing, a lot of people talk about going to the mothership, and this is just a fallen angel throne in the second heaven. A lot of them talk about going to the Hall of Records, and you hear a lot about this. And the Great Lodge, the Great White Lodge. These are just all fallen angel thrones in the second heaven, but there's a reality to it. And when people try to approach the Father on their own terms instead of on his terms, a lot of times people wind up with counterfeit spiritual experiences that they really think are from the Father, and they're not. They're totally counterfeit. And in some of the most popular ones, we might just mention, you talk about buzzwords. Whenever you hear any of these, you want to run. Saint Germain, who we've mentioned, Jesus and Mary, you got to be careful there, because these are two of their favorite ascended masters. Manesis was the ascended master, a Swinburne climber. Jwal Kul, Sanat Kamara, Hoot Kumi, the master KM. And this is not an exhaustive list, but these are some of their favorites. So these are a reality in the spiritual realm. They're false thrones, and we must be very, very careful only to approach the Father by faith in the cross and the shed blood of Yeshua, and then we can ask in faith for the real Ruach, but we have to come on his terms. We can't come on our own, and this can have some very, very eternally deadly results.
Very, very true. And this next guy I'm going to talk a little bit about, this kind of goes into the idea about the fraternity of the inner light. And this guy's name's Gareth Knight. And he was a teacher and a correspondence course on Kabbalah. And he described it as the masters of the interplay adepti. And he supposedly gained enough experience to be enlightened to a higher plane of existence himself. And that's what he wrote about, these people that had basically made their plane to a higher existence. So what they believe that these are people that have lived on the earth, and I'll go into a little bit more about that. Who are the ascended masters, and what do they believe about them? Obviously, we know what we believe about them, but what do they believe, and why do they believe it? Because I don't feel like all these people are necessarily bad people. They think they're doing what's right. They think that they are helping humanity go into a new realm, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But so the ascended masters, and hopefully you guys can see that. It says, basically, according to the people that subscribe to this stuff, the ascended masters they're people, they're humans. They've attained spiritual enlightenment, and before their physical death, they were normal humans, and they had to undergo initiations and spiritual transformations. And so they're commonly referred to as Mahatma, or the masters of ancient wisdom. And according to their teachings, the ascended masters, they had to take the fifth initiation, and they're capable of dwelling in the fifth dimension after this. And their titles, while they're still alive here on this earth, usually are master, commoner, shaman, or spiritual master. These are the kind of people that you're going to see that associate themselves with people that have been taken in this initiation, and when they die, they're going to go to the fifth dimension. This is what they believe. And so their title...
And just think, John, if we would just believe and obey what Yeshua said, call no man master. Yeah, I mean, that'd just take care of it. Just simple obedience to the doctrine of Christ. Call no man master. Well, if you just do that, these guys aren't going to get you.
Yeah, these guys become obsolete at that point. Yeah. And that's for sure. And so basically after they pass on, and I know the term pass on doesn't necessarily, this is what they believe, they can take the sixth dimension initiative, and they refer to that as ascension. And you see a lot of ascension here, and they can become in full union with their I am presence. The ascension is interesting because a lot of Catholics use the word ascension. Actually, there's a hospital here in town that changed their name from St. Mary's to the Ascension Healthcare Place, and they have the tri-union symbol of the triune God symbol on their thing. It's very interesting the way that they use these terms, but you can find these terms everywhere, and you can find this belief everywhere. And so and I'm just going to talk about a little bit. I'm just going to go through these pretty quick, these different levels of initiates. There's one called the Chohan, and this is not Cohen, but very close. It's spelled Chohan, and they are also called the Lord of the Ray. And they're a special group of ascended masters who have been put in charge of the 12 rays, depending on whose teachings you go by, because in Theosophy there's different ones. There's 12 rays or there's 7 rays, but whatever subgroup you follow, it's going to vary between 7 and 12. But these rays are a stream of spiritual energy that actually come from the Godhead, according to them, and each ray represents a quality of God that they have in there, which is really, really crazy. But a lot of these symbols, like this symbol that you see right here of the person sitting in the form here with the yoga, Kundalini form here, and you see the rainbow there, and you see the rays of light coming. A lot of the art that you see today of saints or of Yeshua or whatever, you see this light beams coming off the top of their head, and this is what we're talking about here. They concentrate on these things. What a boring job, by the way. Yeah. Sit there and concentrate on these light rays that are coming. I don't know that I'd want to be initiated that far personally.
No. And you see a lot of the very same stuff in a lot of your medieval art and all of your Renaissance painters who were almost to the man into the occult and this Gnostic version of the whole thing. So yeah, these depictions of Yeshua you can just see the same thing with the light rays and the whole thing, the auras as they would call it.
Yeah, and that's another term, auras, that people need to be aware of. When you hear the word aura, you hear the word chakra, you hear the word all these different things, that this all has to do with this stuff. This is very much so a part of what they have, and this is where these terms originated. And so they have these different levels. Now the next, I'm just going to go through some of these levels. I'm not going to go into too much detail about them because honestly, I don't want to sit here and do a college course, so I want to keep the show somewhat interesting, but I want to let you guys know that what they are, so you are familiar with the terms here. So this next level, this is the 7th initiation, and they have a senior administration in the Great White Brotherhood, and it's divided into 3 departments. They're called the Department of Manu, the Department of Manure, it should be, and the Department of Planetary Christ, and the Department of Mahakohen. And so they have these different departments, and then you have the next level, which is the 8th level. And these is another initiation they can take, and they have the 3 Buddhas. And they actually, I'm sorry, this is the wrong slide here, but I'm going to go back to me real quick. They are able to have, there are 3 Buddhas that actually sit in this position here, and they don't interact with the human race at all, but they focus their energy and their on the 7 rays that come from, David mentioned the name earlier, Sanat Kumara, and the energy comes from Sanat Mukara to the Chohans of the 7 rays, and Alice Bailey, Leadbeater, and all kinds of others, they actually claim to communicate with these beings telepathically. So if you're going to believe this, you have to believe Leadbeater once again, and all these people that have communicated with them telepathically, because otherwise there's no other information on them, which it's really interesting how people really put their faith in guys like Leadbeater and all these people who claim to communicate with these beings, because really the only literature you find on these guys are that, and there's other people that have claimed to communicate with these people as well, but this is where we get this stuff. And so one more level here is the 9th level, and there's supposedly other levels after this, but I'm not going to get too far into it because, like I said, a lot of this stuff is just you can speculate on it all day what they believe, but there's so many different versions, because as they continue, the versions change because people continue to write their records. There's actually an order of people that are writing records constantly about these different I guess I would call them necromancers, people that pop into these conversations with these people. And so this is a 9th level initiate, and according to the Ascended Master's teachings, they are considered the Lord of the world, all right, or the eternal youth. And Kumara, and here's this term again, twin flame, and I want you guys to be aware, remember this term twin flame, because I have seen authors that we know that you guys have listened to before write about the twin flame. But anyway, Sanat Kumara had a twin flame named Lady Master Venus, and their daughter's name was Lady Master Meta. So these are where these terms come from, and so it's interesting. But they have these nine level initiatives, and Theosophists claim. Now this is where this slide comes in. Theosophists claim that there are Nordic aliens, and David, you talked about ufology here, and the Nordic aliens, they're humanoid extraterrestrials that supposedly come from Pleiades, right? And these people, and you guys have heard the Pleiades terms, and they resemble Nordic Scandinavians. And in ufology, they're said to have like long blonde hair. You can see the picture here. This is recreations of people that have supposedly seen these things, and they have long hair, blue eyes, and they're about 6 to 7 feet tall, according to a lot of people that have been abducted supposedly by aliens, all these different things, and seen these beings. This is what they look like, and of course we could speculate all day about what they actually are, but this is, according to them, what they look like. And I would submit that they are seeing something, but I do not think they're Nordic aliens, in my opinion. I don't believe this is what they are. Did you have something to add to that, David? Well, I got one more quick.
Much we could talk about it.
Yeah,
go right ahead.
Yeah, so they believe it goes all the way up to level 17, but I said the last one was the last level, but I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this one, because we talked about on a show you did, David, with us on the Midnight Ride about Nibiru, and we talked about planets, where that term planet comes from. And so on the 10th level, they have a symbolic perfection called planetary logos, so planetary word, or the spirit of the earth. And this is another reason I want to talk about this too, because you talked about Coast to Coast earlier. they have this new thing called the Gaia thing, which I think Nori is like one of their main sponsors behind this, but the Gaia philosophy. And this Gaia philosophy is, let me show you this next it describes Gaia or Mother Earth, and so this is the easiest way to describe it. And what they believe about it is this is like one of the 10th levels where you kind of get your own kind of planetary idea, and this is where Gaia it comes from. So when you hear the word Gaia, you hear the word Mother Earth, and you hear all these different things. This is where it comes from. This is not just, I remember as a kid hearing Mother Earth all the time and having no clue what it actually meant. I just thought, there's the God's the Father and the Earth's the Mother. He created it, and all these different things. You get these concepts in your head of just happy little world structures that go on. But like people like Bailey believed that they went up to level 17, and I'm not going to go into all of them because, like I said before, it's just long drawn out stuff. If you want to go out and study it and check it out, go for it. But it is just completely insane. And after this, I'll go into the levels before the 5th level, the 5th initiate, because I think that that's important to understand some of the terms behind that. But if you want to have anything to discuss before about that, go for it.
Well, the desire of disembodied fallen spirits that are in the second heaven, we know that the spirits of the Nephilim, they roam on the first heaven as what we see in our Christian scriptures called devils. But it's the desire of these disenfranchised spirits to return to the earth in flesh and blood bodies so that they can experience the lust of the flesh, which they can't do in their disembodied state. And there are actual, and of course this is the whole Genesis 6 scenario we see.
Who is Saint Germain? And why is he important to the events happening today? Saint Germain is considered to be an ascended master by many occult groups. Before his ascension, he incarnated many times or lived many lives throughout history. These incarnations have been documented by his followers in Theosophy, the New Age, Freemasonry, the Order of the Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucians, and the Knights of Columbus for centuries. He is considered to be the true sovereign Grand Master of both Freemasonry and the Knights of Columbus. Some of Saint Germain's alleged incarnations include the High Priest of Atlantis, Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, King Solomon, Plato, Merlin the Magician, Christopher Columbus, and Francis Bacon, to name a few. The idea of random incarnations or reincarnations cannot explain why he was so many influential characters. A better explanation for his many lives is that he is a powerful entity, most likely Gadrael, and he uses what's called overshadowing or channeling to take control and guide humans at various points of their lives to influence the events of history. I discussed Gadrael in my last video. Who is Lucifer? He is Lucifer. I showed you that Lucifer's name is written in the first book of Enoch, and this is the one that showed all the deadly blows to the sons of men, and he led astray Eve. Since Lucifer is not a name, but a title, the angel associated with being the light bearer or the giver of knowledge, or enlightenment, is called Gadrael. That information, along with the names of the other fallen angels, as well as countless other important historical events, has been withheld from us by the dark occultists throughout history who wanted us to remain ignorant. Knowing that Lucifer's name is Gadrael will become important as I discuss the history of Saint Germain and his many incarnations. Saint Germain's followers claim that he was Hermes, an Egyptian sage who was synonymous with the god Thoth. Hermes is credited with creating alchemy and developing a system of metaphysical beliefs that are known today as Hermeticism, which is the basis of most modern right-hand path magic. Before he was considered a god, he was the greatest Egyptian philosopher and the founder of ancient Egyptian mystery schools. He received his wisdom while in a meditative trance and wrote over 40 books, including the Emerald Tablets. It is in the Emerald Tablets that Thoth, or Hermes, connects himself to Atlantis, claiming that he was the high priest there. To the Egyptians, Hermes' knowledge was so great that they
Greeting everybody, welcome, my name is Ayelet and I welcome you for Telos Lemuria village in Israel in the Middle East. We are here in this beautiful pyramid, one of the 7 secret flags that come into this planet Earth. And I invite you today to experience a bit this beautiful ray, the resurrection ray that coming from the central sun. So I welcome you to the Telos village and welcome you today. I hope you have some peaceful, quiet place to sit at. You can close your eyes so you can see in your third eye, inside side, everything that we're going to do in the fifth dimension and experience in the high level of your awareness. I invite you to take a big, long breath inside. And by the name I am that I am, I invite the ray of resurrection from the central sun to come and to be with us, each one of us, in his special place, in the etheric pyramid that already has around us. And the ray coming from the crown chakra into our energetic and physical, emotional and mental bodies. In this beautiful ray that carry with her proton and electron with the higher energy of the resurrection, build inside of our crystal brain and physical brain the capability of open our awareness for the new energy that coming to the planet Earth, to be aware to the wire endless energy of the source. And we can see already this beautiful ray put shining and light into our crystal brain and human brain. Most of the people walk with their brain as 5%, but we can do it and open it for even 25 until 30%. So we can see in our inside light the multi-dimension that already opened for us, the new humanity that's going on this land. So let's take a long breath in and you can see the beautiful ray coming down to all our body, to our chakra of the heart, and it's open. And the resurrection flame built inside of our body, each one of every cell and every electron that go inside, and let the energy go fluently through your chakra, crown chakra, third eye, throat, heart, solar, sex, and base chakra. Let's see all the energy go fluently, very easily. This beautiful ray and energy start to work on our physical body start to heal itself. And we are now rebuild all the cell, all the muscle. Look of the structure of your body and get the energy inside to make your body strong and beautiful, full with this beautiful energy, and get the healing we need. Breathe in and feel your body just now. Be refreshed again. And now we can continue and see the ray going to our crystal body. And our crystallite body that is so high and tall is get this beautiful energy in, and you can see the gold, orange light come inside. Look to your hand. Look how much they are glowing. We have the capability to walk with this beautiful energy in the field of energy. And we are now shining in glory at this right time with this beautiful ray we put and breathe inside. Let your sex chakra be open now and start activating in a circulation that have this energy all around like a beautiful spiral. Go inside and check the sex energy full, how it start to be activating again. Start to feel the passion inside of you go fluently with this energy, the energy of life, the energy of creation. This is the energy that we bring to our physical world to create the new into our life. Let's take and breathe in. Beautiful energy, beautiful walk. All the ray and the energy of the ray is all around us in our pyramid. It's walking and make us ready to be ready for our next path as we go on this planet Earth in this amazing time life. And I'm calling now for the Master Sananda to be here with us, and Lady Nada. And you can invite them for your energy field and start to feel them. You can start to feel both of them, Sananda in the right, Lady Nada in the left. Feel their energy, masculine and feminine. Both come to bring the blessing for you. And I'm calling now the Master, Lord Adama, the High Priest from Telos, to be here with us. And he comes especially to bring the blessing and the knowledge. Greeting, my beautiful brother and sister of Telos. I'm blessing you today. Here I am, Adama. I see your beautiful shining light going through your aura. I can see your beautiful heart open to this magical energy. Keep walking with this energy. And this energy coming through your cell and through your knowledge and awareness. You can be the creativity that you are. You can bring this beautiful light to every aspect at your life. Do you want to bring the love to your life? Do you want to bring the courage to your life? Do you want to bring the joy into your life?